welcome to my art form.
It's time for Post-Orthodoxy, a show about changing our minds.
Yeah, baby.
With your hosts, Dark and Ainsley Sevier.
Maybe what they believe about reality isn't all of reality.
What?
I know, right?
We're on a mission to have a better time with more people more often.
The question is more, how do you get there?
Post-Orthodoxy explores strongly held beliefs, how those belief systems divide or connect people, and what might be found beyond those reality bubbles.
Keep calm. Don't lose your head.
I've got a piece of chocolate here with me because I got anxiety about doing this.
Welcome to this neighborhood, neighbor.
Here we are, once again.
Yay, glad to be back.
Welcome to Post-Orthodoxy, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us again today in the Outpost in the Borderlands. Season 3, Episode 6. Our fifth episode with a guest, which is very exciting because we really didn't have a lot of guests in Season 2.
Yeah, everybody was locked down in one way or the other.
And then we got out of the habit, and
we like to hear our own voices a lot.
There was a lot to talk about, and we're really excited to start having more opinions in the post-orthodoxy neighborhood where we can bring people in and talk about their experience of life and their experience of the universe and what they're learning and what's interesting for them and things that they've had to change their minds about. So it's not just always about things Dark and I have changed our minds about.
That's right.
That was one of our big critiques from Season 2 was people were like, you need to have other people talking about the stuff, which I understand. We're all used to hearing from experts and specialists in their field, and so we're doing our best to bring some folks in who have studied the things that we talk about sometimes on Post-Orthodoxy way more than we've studied them.
Okay, so I'm really excited. Just to let everybody know, I've been spanked by Meta.
Yes.
I got meta spanked. I don't know why. I don't know why exactly. I think
they don't tell you specifically which thing you're getting spanked for.
They always ask me if I agree with it.
Do you agree with this decision?
I say no, I don't.
Yes,
I'm like,
Daddy.
Thank you.
Yes, Daddy. I know I was bad. You know who says that? Who says yes? I agree that I should be censored.
Yes, you should please censor me. Yeah.
I
Such
really
a weird...
didn't even mean to share that in the first place. Whatever it was.
So I cannot share Post-Orthodoxy's live stream to my Dark Sevier page.
Oh my God.
So
we're counting on you guys.
I am now sharing the YouTube stream on my page the Twitch stream on my page, saying that I've been meta spanked and I'm trying to work around censorship.
Fuck you, Facebook.
Those are both
old Deb
up
is
now.
in the house.
Yeah, welcome to the show.
So we have a little tiny disclaimer that we do in the beginning, which is basically like
for your safety.
For your safety, viewer discretion advised. We are probably going to talk about something on this show that will make you uncomfortable at some point.
Every week we talk about something that makes somebody uncomfortable.
Yep, and it might be a religious thing or a sexual thing or a political thing or a historical thing or an economic thing. People get really sensitive when you talk about their sacred cows as if they're not sacred, but rather something that we should be able to ask questions about. And so at some point, we're probably going to ask questions about something that might be a sacred cow for you that you think maybe nobody should talk about, but that's why Post-Orthodoxy is here. We have a mission to build community and reduce harm by challenging dogmatic thinking, because dogmatic thinking is black and white and binary, and it separates us from each other rather than enabling us to work with each other.
Okay, I found out I can comment as Post-Orthodoxy on the Post-Orthodoxy Facebook page.
Shall we bring our guest on, Dark?
Yeah, let's bring our guest on.
Do you have anything you'd like to say about Adrienne Youngblood before we bring her on the camera, or do you want to let everybody watch her blush while you talk her up?
Yeah, there's no pressure. This is a friend. This is a friend of ours, friend of the show, friend of mine personally for many long times. And I figure we're just going to have a nice casual conversation. She's got a nice comfy couch, and bring on to the show Adrienne Youngblood.
There she is.
Welcome to the show. Thanks for
thank you.
tuning in, for beaming in today.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel too.
Yeah.
This is a great exercise, and I'm so happy to join both of you. It's kind of exciting because I've, like Dark has said, I've known you for a very long time, and even knew you before I knew you. So
yeah, that's
just
what
We're going to get to that part later.
we'll tell
I
that
wanna
story
hear
because
about
it's
that.
kind of a funny story. Funny
This is
story.
good practice, Adrienne, because as a very important demographic of documentary filmmaker, meaning like a woman who's making movies, you should absolutely be out there doing interviews and inspiring all the other women and girls that think that there's not space for them in the filmmaking industry. So thank you for what you're doing.
You're being sexist.
Reverse sexist.
Yeah.
I'm perpetuating divides as we speak.
we have a lot of time to make up for. So, you know, it's the way it is, and whether it is or isn't.
How do
But
we address?
I appreciate that.
How do we address inequality without perpetuating divides? I ask you.
So I know it's very difficult to introduce yourself. So I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction because I think we share a very diverse resume. And I did an exercise when I was 30 something, when I was trying to get a job, and I was doing all the resume things of like, I work good with people and I'm a team player and all that, whatever that shit is.
This job from this year.
Yeah. I had access to a state computer. This is back before everybody had the computers. So I thought, I'm just going to type my id resume, like all the things that I'm proud of. So I'm like, I was dealing acid across the United States when I was 19 years old. You know, that resume. So
Who you really are.
the stuff that I feel like that was a thing. These are the stories that you tell in the kitchen at 4 o'clock in the morning when the party's winding down. That's why it doesn't wind down. So I want to ask you, give us your id resume. What things have you done in your life that you would like people to know about that you feel good about having done?
I have to put this over here so people can see him.
Wow. Okay. So that's kind of a loaded question.
Totally.
Yeah. So
The things that you can talk about.
Go ahead. Yeah. And then there's that. That's kind of where I was going with that. You know, what how many listeners do you have? No.
Yeah. We usually have about 20 people tuning in on Sundays, and then we are always finding out about more lurkers and people that listen to it after the fact or watch after the fact.
Funny.
Well, you've given the disclaimer.
Funny story. I went across the street to get a burrito. We have a burrito place across the street. And I was telling the lady, she's like, you're going live at noon? And I'm like, yeah. And I started talking about my getting spanked by Meta. And then this guy eating his breakfast burrito at the counter was sort of giving me side eye. And then, so I gave the lady our new card that goes to our link tree, which is our Instagram, Spotify, blah, 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 blah. And I slid one to him and he goes, I knew that was you. And he pulls up his phone and he's listening to Post-Orthodoxy on Spotify. And was hearing my voice coming out of. So shout out to
Miners
Logan.
Pub and Grub.
Shout out to Logan over at Miners Pub and Grub for tuning in to our past shows.
So cool. And
on Spotify, Logan on Spotify. I don't know. I won't even touch that, but that's kind of that's kind of great.
We can touch on that later.
Later.
As long as everybody's in agreement, we can touch whatever we want.
Oh my gosh, right?
So we bought a lot of time where you didn't have to say stuff. Your turn.
Thank you. I was definitely like sourcing my mind on what would I possibly say here? Look, should I start when I was 5?
Yes.
But actually, I have had that essence of that archetypal. I've got to save the world, and wherever that is implanted as a child, and you try to figure out what the heck that even means. But and I'm not doing that. And I don't think that's my mission. I'm just I am reflecting on some of what you're talking about. And I think that my more public work and the things that I've done lately since about 2015, I think that's more relevant to right now.
Okay.
And, and that is that, I actually had a very bad horse accident. I used to I have a lot of horses and I still do, of course, but I had a bad accident and it left me bedridden and for about 8 months. And that's when I fell down a research frenzy.
Oh, boy.
I've always been a researchaholic, but here I am trapped in my bed, can't really go anywhere and really can't do anything. I've got my brain working, but my body not so much. So there I went and really started uncovering a whole lot of the questions that I've had most of my life. And, but wait, what about this? And started really asking questions about, space travel and how does our consciousness connect through maybe an astral travel kind of thing. So I went there, and then that tripped me on to other political things and in our world. I mean, I know that the two don't seem like they would connect. We're talking about rabbit holes,
right?
And trees with branches. And so there I went, and I started getting involved in an organization that they really were stressing the free energy patents that had been available for, that had been buried by, threat of national security. So those patents were, put away and locked up. But then I started reading about all the people who have actually done this and had their patents taken away. And it's like, wait, they
what?
all know about free energy, wait a minute, we could change the world in about 30 days with all this information.
Right.
So I joined this group that was the goal. And that ended up taking me into, again, more rabbit holes. I started doing conferences that invited a great deal, a variety of people, secret space program whistleblowers, to those who were in the military and were experimented on, human trafficking, mind control, 5G, all of the things that we had questions about. In the vernacular, and I had questions about it.
Right.
I'm not really that person who's going to go, okay, here's the information, choke it, eat it, it's true. I have no idea, but I'm super curious, and I know how to put those things together. So that's I've done several conferences. My last one was Dimensions of Disclosure.
You've spoken at conferences or hosted conferences?
No, I've produced them.
Woo!
I produce them. I invite the speakers, and I produce and make sure the whole thing works.
That's cool.
And so so the last one was Dimensions of Disclosure in 2019, and the event side, I've obviously, because of that flu we're all having to deal with, that was events are just not really a good way to reach people anymore.
Right.
And so I also then started working with the same team, different people from the same teams that we were doing documentaries. We started, asking a lot of questions, and some of the documentaries that I've produced.
She can pull up some graphics.
I shall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gosh. So I'm like, wait.
You can tell us some of the movies.
Pieces.
Yeah, what are the names of some of your...
1,000 Pieces was definitely one of the ones that I've produced. I was more involved with just getting all those people together, because that was one that just came together like that due to the cancellation of another one. Anyway, so that was 1,000 Pieces.
And what was that about? Subject?
That was about really the corruption in some of the people that were harmed through FBI and CIA belonging, and how they weren't really the good players there, so they kind of got squeezed out by the FBI and the CIA, and they kind of tell their story and how that happened to them, and what that is, and there's also the whole understanding. This was kind of before the last election that this documentary was released, so there was a lot of understanding trying to be delivered about what that sandwich of information, and at that time, what all the politics that were going on at that time around Trump and digital soldiers, and the censorship had just started. And so we really had a lot more freedom to just discuss.
Right. Right.
But of course, that as we've seen that develop, the more and more through censorship, there is no more, it's very difficult to discuss anything that's not the narrative. And then, of course, we just released The Observers. That's available on Amazon.com and iTunes and all the other, regular places where you rent movies.
Yeah.
And The Observers is, it's kind of a look at...
This one's got like a super legit movie poster.
I know.
That's what I kind of felt like when I saw it. We'd been looking through all of your movies, like, which one should we watch tonight? And then we came up with this movie poster. I was like, oh my God, that's a real movie poster right there.
So we're going to watch that movie.
I thought we did watch The Observers.
Yeah, we did.
See,
We
that
did.
one-
We watched The
that one we
Observers.
got-
I really enjoyed it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that one, that one had like real distribution from a real distribution company.
Nice.
So, they like to do all the, shiny things that, sell documentaries. And I was mostly part of, I produced that one, but there was a lot of producers on that one, and everyone has a different job.
That's right. A producer, producer
Right.
can mean a lot of things.
Exactly. Yeah.
We went down the rabbit hole that you had carved out doing a unit study to prepare for our interview with you. So we watched The Observers. We watched Beyond
Majestic, Above Majestic.
Above Majestic.
Which
Yeah,
I was like,
this
this is the dumb title, until I understood that Majestic is like a clearance level. I was like, what does this mean? Like aliens are majestic, or like we're thinking majestically, like enlightenment or whatever? I don't know. And then we watched it and I was like, oh, I'm smarter now. Majestic is a clearance level. So this is like things that are above even this extremely high clearance level.
Right.
Knowledge.
Yeah.
So we went down the rabbit hole of, we saw there's a new Bob Lazar documentary that we watched as well. We decided to sort of round out.
We accidentally watched 2 Bob Lazar documentaries.
By accident.
Yeah, and I had nothing to do with those.
No, you had nothing to do with those.
I just want to make that perfectly clear.
There we go.
we expanded, we took a fork off of your work to find adjacent material, because I have gone down that rabbit hole before. Ainsley had not fully sort of gotten immersed in the story of the Disclosure Project.
Well, I'll just
you say it.
As like I'm often the foil on post-orthodoxy, because not intentionally or unintentionally. I grew up super conservative Republican Christian in a very, very conservative liturgical version of the evangelical church. So the hierarchy, for instance, was God, pastor, husband, wife, children. Very much about like purity culture and homeschooling and creationism and all of these things. And you really only vote to stop the gays and save the babies. It doesn't matter anything else about their platform. And then about in 2015, I got to the point where it just became untenable. The cognitive dissonance between my experiences of reality and what I was told was reality, I was exhausted trying to continue to believe what I had been raised to believe.
Cognitive dissonance got too much.
It was exhausting. It was like a fuzz. I was in a fuzz for like 4 years. And so I got divorced. I stopped going to church. My parents stopped talking to me for a few years. And I've just been sort of out in the world, like finding out what a Smurf is and listening to Pink Floyd for the first time and things like that. And watching an R-rated movie, learning how to say fuck and stuff. And so like little baby steps. And I've been gradually expanding to learn about, and it's really exciting because I'm coming at these things like the JFK assassination or the concept of aliens with fresh eyes. I wasn't really told anything about it because it didn't matter, because it wasn't real, And so like, I didn't grow up with all the propaganda around the JFK assassination. It was just like, it happened, it was sad, whatever. So I didn't know that half of America or most of America just goes through their daily lives thinking that he was murdered from behind. Mm-hmm. Because I had only ever seen that one little clip in movies where they show him getting shot from the front and his head whipping backwards and his brains blowing out the back of his head.
Back into the left. Back into the left.
Yeah. So I was like, so part of going down the alien disclosure stuff and watching the documentaries led to other things the government lies about that people don't really even know. But we could, because it's all out there, is like, wait, like most of America grew up thinking JFK was murdered from behind, because if you watch the video, obviously he wasn't. And we have a video of it now, but they were all told the same thing for so long that they were
told the story before they saw the film.
Yes. And
then they just made their perceptions go with
even though the evidence is there now, the imprint was that he was murdered from behind. He was murdered from behind. And so even when faced with very clear evidence, a lot of people just they're like, well, that was in the past, whatever, it doesn't matter. And so the same thing is happening with me with the alien thing, where I just sort of thought non-judgmentally, I grew up believing in a lot of things I couldn't prove. And I've always loved the idea that maybe unicorns really did exist, like narwhals exist. I mean, we don't know. We're always finding out about different kinds of dinosaurs that we didn't know were there. I'd always sort of thought aliens was like one of these things where it could maybe have happened or be happening, but it's probably so rare and so undocumented that, like, well, you know, it's never,
with the unicorns.
Yeah, it's like it's never really going to be a thing. Like, I also know a creation scientist who claims to have taken photos of a long neck plesiosaur in the middle of the forests in South America. So I spoke with that man one-on-one about his deep belief in his experience that if his camera hadn't been confiscated by customs, he would have a photo to show people of a living plesiosaur in South America. So to me, the aliens was kind of like that. Like, and then we watched all these documentaries, and I'm like, holy shit! There's like buttloads of redacted government documents.
Right.
This is inductive reasoning. This is Sherlock Holmes. This is like, that you don't have a picture of an alien. We have a ton of evidence that makes a picture of an alien in the middle where the nothing is. And so I've been kind of mind blown that, like,
she's your perfect audience member for your movies, by the way.
Like
Came in with fresh eyeballs.
Way more real than I thought it was.
Wait, what happened to your sound? No sound.
Can't hear you. Nope. Oh, this whole time we've been Hello?
No, nothing.
Nothing? Weird. I literally didn't press buttons that entire time. It could be a battery issue. It could be you might have touched the thing on your neck.
Tech support.
Can
you hear us?
Try unplugging your headphones.
Okay. Unplugging.
How now?
Now say stuff. No, nothing.
Nope. Can you hear us now? Oh, shit. I'm so sad. We didn't change anything the whole time.
We'll get it worked out. No, nothing. Huh.
Oh, my gosh.
Do we need to go away and come back?
5 minutes?
Yeah, let's go away and come back. We have stuff to talk about.
All right. She's going to figure out the thing.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk.
Right.
And then I'm going to kick you out of the Zoom video, and you ping us when you want to come back, okay?
She says yes.
All right, great. I'll text her something to that effect, too.
Okay.
Oh, I'm so sad. I feel so badly because we were like, I was so ready for
That was the big build-up.
That was the big build-up to, like, Adrienne talking for. I just want to hear what Adrienne has to say about her work now.
We'll fix it in post.
When did you first hear about aliens, Dark?
Isn't all of reality?
I had a UFO experience when I was 6.
We are on a mission to have a better time with more people more often.
The question is,
Like you think you did?
So here's the story. 6 years old, Atlanta, Georgia.
How those
I'm in,
belief systems divide or connect people,
my bedroom,
and what might be found beyond
and
reality.
a green glowing orb shows
Keep
up at the
calm.
window.
Don't lose your head.
Okay.
I've got a piece of chocolate here with
Right.
me because I got anxiety
And you didn't
about
know the
doing
word
this.
orb when you were 6.
No, it was like football shaped, but roundy at the ends, more roundy at the ends. So it was oblong, maybe egg shaped, glowing, like literally like the glow in the dark toys you get, glowing that color green, outside my window. And so like, whatever, I look at the thing and I don't remember anything else. And then I wake up the next morning and I'm having breakfast with the family. And I'm like, hey, Mom, I saw a...
Like flubber. Like it was glowing like flubber?
Yeah. I'm like, hey, Mom, I saw a green glowing orb outside my window. Whatever a 7-year-old said.
Whatever word you said.
So I'm like, I had this green glowing thing outside my window. And I was really excited about it because it was unique. And she's like, oh, it was probably just like a glow-in-the-dark Frisbee or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, it was hanging, and I know what a Frisbee looks like. It was like hanging outside my window. So my sister, my older sister, she's about 7 years older than me, so she's like early teens. She starts kicking me into the table and giving me the eyes, like,
don't say anything.
Just don't say anything. And so then breakfast was over, and then she took me aside after breakfast and said, I saw it too. And we shouldn't say anything about it. She just told me to be mum's the word on the thing.
So she was like 13 or something.
Yeah.
and somehow she knew.
She was like, well, obviously mom's not going to get it.
Right.
And I don't know what her experience was.
That maybe she had said something else earlier in life and had been treated weirdly for a while by the parents.
Maybe so. So that sister Jessie and I have always had this wink and nod relationship that we're really not from this family.
Did you just like dox her online? I mean, what if your mom watches this
No,
video?
we've
talked about it since then.
She can't spank us anymore.
Oh, God.
Right? We're fine.
Or force you to go to therapy.
No. So that was the first UFO experience.
Okay.
So that one.
And you think you've had another one?
I've had definitely another one.
Really? Wait. Oh, yeah, I've heard about this.
Yeah, up on the mountains.
Right. Tell us.
It's kind of, that one's a little more complex.
A little more special?
It's definitely a little more complex. But it was 2 lights in the sky that just hung above us while we were out in the mountains.
Right. I'm listening.
Are we figuring it out?
You're telling us about your second
It's too
alien.
long. It's too long.
No, it's good. It's a good story because I want to hear other people's alien stories.
Yeah, I want to hear other people's alien stories.
One of the things that people brought up on one of Adrienne's documentaries is how you really couldn't talk about weird experiences.
You'll get alienated.
10, 20, 30 years ago. But now we're getting to the place where you can say that you had an alien encounter and still have a job. You can say you had an alien encounter and still have custody of your kids.
More so.
Yeah. And so a lot of people...
It depends on how vehemently you say it, is really what it is.
Right. Can you talk about your alien experience in a sensible and objective, socially norm kind of way or whatever? But this lady, she was in like her 60s, and she says a lot of us who had these experiences are starting to come forward and talk about them because we're, I would love to see like a TikTok challenge. I've been pondering, like, how do I make a TikTok challenge that's like, tell me about your alien experience? Because a lot of the times the kids will start one of those challenges and be like, okay, use this sound to tell me about your alien experience. And then they'll play some creepy music and you talk over it. And then it goes viral. And you suddenly have a ton of people sharing this experience because they've done other kinds of TikTok challenges with like your dog or your favorite work of art that you've created or whatever it is.
Right.
So I would love to create more of an open acceptance of people talking about their experiences with the ineffable.
Right.
That some people think of as aliens and some people think it's Krishna and some people think it's an angel or whatever.
I have that piece that UFO Experience typed out on ye olde computer printout. I would have to retype the whole thing, but I have like a 30-page story on that UFO experience.
Can you hear us?
No,
we cannot hear you.
Nothing.
You just keep trying. We'll know when we can hear you. We'll be like, hey.
Yeah. Say things whenever, and we'll keep trying it over here. Could it be? We didn't do anything over here.
I was ranting.
Yeah.
And so I was like not pushing any buttons. I'm gonna kick you out, and then you come back in. Try that. How do I
more?
Kick. Remove. Chat. We'll not be able to rejoin the meeting. God damn it.
Why not?
All right.
Yeah, just leave her there.
End meeting for all.
Oh, God.
And then I'm going to start another one and send her a new link. So that's
while
fine.
you're doing that, I'll tell the UFO.
Yes,
I'll tell.
please.
This is the clip notes.
This is a good one. You've talked about almost everything about that experience on this thing before. I feel as though it's not like you're going to be revealing something weird and unexpected about yourself. You know what I'm saying?
No, it's a very long, detailed story, and I think I like all the details of the story. So I'm going to publish it to our Facebook page, to our website,
Substack.
That would be an LA story, one of the LA stories. So yeah, the UFO story. I'll talk about some of the qualities of the UFO. So for me, I was being very agnostic about UFOs. I thought UFOs could be...
You'd had that experience, but you were kind of like, meh.
Well, the early experience. But I'd also been doing a lot of work around perceptions and cognition and how all this business works. And so I'm like, some people see the Virgin Mary, but somebody else who didn't believe in the Virgin Mary might see a gray alien. I felt like there's like phenomena going on, and then our operating system...
just put a name on it.
Puts a veil up through which to perceive something that really maybe isn't any of those things.
Maybe we can't perceive it at all.
Right.
Yeah.
So it could be religious. It could be a UFO. Maybe it's geomagnetic. That's another theory, is that there's certain places on the world where there's Fuji coming out of the ground.
Oh, right. That's messing with your perceptions.
Just messing
It
with
could
your
be
perceptions.
People
yeah.
in psychedelics, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. All those things. So I'm pretty agnostic, but I did have that experience where I was, it's like 2:00 in the morning. We're up in the mountains. I'm laying on this rock, and I had that sensation of what people talk about being on the table with the lights and the figures surrounding you. I'm like, if I went down the UFO thing, I would start seeing gray aliens. If I went down this other track, maybe it's old dudes in beards.
Right.
I don't know.
Maybe it's the
who
masters
going
of
to be. Right.
time.
Exactly. So I remained agnostic and nothing materialized. And then eventually everything went white, void. And I was talking
In
to
the middle of the night on a mountain.
Yeah, it was just
Right.
like, it was like this golden, scintillating white. It was like I was disembodied from any physicality. And my
Right.
voice seemed to be coming from nowhere and somewhere.
Uh-huh.
And my friend's voice seemed to be coming from nowhere and somewhere. I couldn't locate
I've experienced that like sound tunnel thing.
It
where
was
like,
just
I should
an
be able to
ever-present
tell
sound.
where this is coming from,
But I couldn't. And then that was related to the lights. So we had been watching these two lights on the horizon, and we'd seen the stars move. The moon came up. We could see the towers for the radio stations. We could see LAX flight patterns.
Mm-hmm.
These things just didn't move. There were these two orange lights.
Abnormal.
And other things happened in the middle of that trip. But then when it came time to leave, I was remarking to my friend about those lights and how they hadn't moved. And then they moved. They like went and did little GIF signatures, and then they came together and blinked out. And I had the strangest sensation, like I did with the voice earlier, that they could have been like inside my eyeballs. They could have been 80,000 miles away. There was that same sense of like, I couldn't put depth on that thing.
Right.
It seemed to be in the same place in the sky. But at the moment when it blinked out, it felt like it was interdimensional. I don't know how to say it any other way. It didn't. It gave me the same impression that the sound did when I went into the white void. The sound just seemed to be, I was inside the sound. How's it going over there?
How's it going over there?
Hey!
Hooray! I don't know what happened.
Okay. I don't either. I didn't touch anything.
Did you work some magic or something?
Turn it off and turn it on again. We had to do that with all our gear.
I hit it. I threw the computer against the wall, then plugged everything back in, and here we are.
Ta-da!
Welcome back.
Oh, thank you for rejoining us, Adrienne.
and I was like, I was listening to you about, how the thought around, going and asking people for their experiences. And we had that thought as well with the observer. So just kind of like going with, okay, what have you observed?
Right.
Just tell us what you've observed. And, we actually did start doing that a little bit more to cultivate those questions, but we haven't amassed our library yet of the people's responses.
Well, and I got that idea from the lady that you did interview, who was talking about how she feels like it's, she's raised her family, she's done her jobs. It's like a safe time in her life for her to actually start talking about her experiences.
Yeah. And that's the truth too. And like you were saying, now you can say it without losing your job or something like that. Mm-hmm. You're not totally written off as crazy.
Right.
And it's just an exploration. Like, really, what is that? Let's just inquire what is going on. The movie of The Observers, that really does touch on, the people in it have been in the whole UFO UAP reality for.
Can you tell us what UAP
years.
Stands for again?
Yeah, I was just going there.
Oh, sorry.
No. So UFO, of course, is unidentified flying object, but the government doesn't really want to acknowledge that there's UFOs, but there are UAPs, which are unidentified aerial phenomenon, and they will admit that there is UAPs.
Oh, so it might be a cloud.
Semantics.
Right.
Swamp gas.
An aerial phenomenon is not necessarily an independent object doing things.
Right. Which I'm kind of more in line with that because of my own experiences. I feel like whatever we call aliens may not be the form that comes to our cognition.
Although there are these universal experiences that I'm realizing where people all over the planet have seen the same creature. And there are a few top species that people all over the planet have seen the same creature at various times in history.
Chupacabra.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Bigfoot. Or what are the ant beings? You know, a lot of people have seen these, you know,
mantids
type the praying mantis type being. A lot of people have seen that especially in like Arizona, in Grand Canyon area and New Mexico area. That's a very popular place to have those reports, you know. Or my experience in Mount Shasta with you know, military glasses, you know, that you would look up to the sky. I just was shocked. I'm like, okay, this is like a freaking highway. I've never seen so much activity. And what is that activity?
Yeah.
You know, it's okay. Those slow moving things. Yep. Those are satellites, or that's an airplane, or, you know, you can kind of write that off or not write it off. Just stay open to what it might possibly be. But then something whips through the sky and zing zangs and goes, okay, that's not a satellite. Right. And so you kind of
changing directions a lot.
Wait a minute, fast. It's changing directions fast a lot. So,
right.
You know, and I think that, you know, the tallest call to order for all of us right now is to not then, oh, well, cool. Well, let's go have a drink. And we'll see. It's like, wait a minute. There's something that just happened, and don't you want to know what that is? And I think that's for me, that's where I keep going. You know, that's the nature of my beast, where I just, I need to know what that is.
Right.
I can't just call it a day and write it off for a phenomenon I don't understand, because there's just so much of that phenomenon going on in the world that we don't understand. And you know, and it's like Aisling, like what you were saying, it's like, well, you know, all this information is available. It's just that nobody really knows about it. So you really have to go and look for it, but all this information is there. It's all available. It's all in the public. They almost have to publish it, you know, to make it available to us, so that, you know, it is like they're disclosing it, but they're not going to, you know, Walter Cronkite is not going to come on the 6 o'clock news and say,
by the way,
hey guys, CIA files are open now, so have at it. This is not going to happen. So we have to be, you know, proactive about what we really want to know and what we feel we're being lied to about, or just, you know, inquiry.
Well, most of us don't know what we don't know to inquire.
There's that segment.
The problem.
Yeah.
That was all by design.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and also, what do you think is the function in our neighbors' psyches where they have an abnormal experience and don't want to look into it further? What is that about the human experience, in your opinion? Because I know lots of people like that, where they might have a moment of reasonable doubt and they're like, okay, moving on with my life.
Well, you know, I think that's fear. And then if you look beyond, well, what is the fear? And then if you keep moving towards that, it's like, well, if I am willing to believe that this might have been something that happened to me, then that's going to question my belief systems on all these different levels. And if you're questioning my belief systems on this level and this level, then I'm going to have to consider this level not to be true. And it really does challenge you to open your mind in different areas, because once you start accepting, you know, the possible answers to your questions and then really reasoning with them, then yeah, you are going to have to really challenge yourself to, do I believe this? Where have I been conditioned to believe something differently? You know, and so I think that a lot of people aren't ready for that kind of confrontation of the self.
Yeah.
And so that's it. It's like, okay, no, never mind. I'm going to go mow my lawn. Like that just didn't happen, you know, unless it keeps happening.
It's a Pandora's box. Like if you choose to open it up, there's no closing it back. And I think when people get a hint of what's in that box, some people make a conscious choice not to open it.
Yeah. I just got to the point with my own issues with reasonable doubt where I was exhausting myself trying to ignore how stuff didn't match. Yeah.
Right. Things stop tracking.
And a lot of people, though, they really do. They've been raised. One of your listeners just said something.
Deb says,
"Yeah, go ahead."
You can read it if you like.
Okay, well, I'm ahead of you, right? My entire life, actually, it's all been a trip. Seriously, like, is this really happening? And I really relate to that but we're, as youngsters, we start seeing things that I guess we're told we're not supposed to pay attention to, or we're conditioned away from. So then that can then more conditioning comes in around, we know we're different or outside, and we're all outside of this template that the norm of society is going in this, the norm of society, this is the template for that. And so we as children, even, we adapt this coping mechanism of not paying attention and to that. It's like, oh, wait, that's really important to me. I kind of feel weird. I feel on the outside. Wait. And then the more and more that doesn't get addressed, the more and more you kind of forget it, or you go into it, depending on who you are and your coping mechanism, and
shut down that imagination.
Fit in.
Yeah,
exactly. Shut down any kind of creative flow. That's all by design. The younger you are, definitely the more by design that is. When they started, and that's going to launch me into my next documentary. But the more, just the whole understanding of when strong mind control came into our educational society and started basically leaning on, let's not ask questions. Let's just, here's the answer, fill it in the bubbles. And
I get it.
Let's move on.
I get an image in my head of like a social version of the roller coaster warning, which is keep hands and head inside the car, where we're just taught to stay within the tunnel vision. Because if you put your head out here or you put your hand out here, you're going to get whacked off by a pole or something. And you've seen enough evidence that people who put their hands or heads outside the car, that you do not put your heads out. And I think cognitively we do the same thing. If you go into this UFO stuff, you become that guy over there. And he has no friends anymore. So don't become that guy over there. And so it is like, just keep your head inside the car. And so most people will get along if they do that. But if you put your head out, you could get it whacked, one, because there is some weird stuff going on outside the consensus. And then there's the other part of just being, it's about, Ainsley breaks it down in terms of it's about losing love and acceptance of your community. If I go here, they may not like me anymore. And it's more important to be liked than to be aware of what's actually happening in the universe.
But that's the advantage of being the person who's, grows up in a situation where they know they're on the outside of a group. Now, of course, it's a sad place for a kid, and they even label you, antisocial if you don't feel like you're supposed to constantly be fighting to be, the popular one in the group. But, that's the conditioning that happens for us. If we look at that way, it's kind of like, well, no, I've never really been part of the group. And my walls have been fortified to withstand that. And now with that great conditioning that I've had of keeping myself fortified to withstand the unacceptableness about me in the group, if you will, then now you've conditioned that. And so you can go out and do those things that you see on the outside of the group. And you do have the strength to say, sorry, I'm not going to go with the group. And guess what? I've tried to come into your group so many times and you wouldn't let me in. So now I'm stronger for it. And I can see things outside of your group, and I can see things outside of your narrative, because I always been able to do that. And it's never been important to me to, belong to the group, except for, when I was little. And again, that's what I'm saying. It was like, well, I don't belong. So
early on, you found out
what's
you
the
didn't
benefit
belong.
of that? Yeah.
I think it's
a great thing.
Really, really important subject. It's actually one of the few questions that I wrote down that I wanted to talk to you about today, or get your perspective on, which I think you already just said it. But to frame what you just said, the idea, I look at what happened with the last 2 years with what I call the coronavirus narrative. There are various stories, but there's the main story. Keep your head and hands inside the car of the main story. And I wonder, maybe you can speak more to the idea of, because I know very accomplished people, very well-educated people, very intelligent people, very intuitive people who seem to go in a direction that doesn't make sense to me in terms of going along with a mainstream, obviously produced and obviously flawed narrative. To me, obviously, but to them, they stayed inside that narrative, and it doesn't have to do with intelligence or how good of a person they are or how bad of a person they are. It has nothing to do with that. What is that? I think you're touching on it with what you're saying. Like, we call it enhanced natural immunity to bullshit, because we were afflicted with a cult virus that we had to then heal ourselves from. And so now we see cult virus as it moves around. We have those military goggles that see this shit zip around in the sky. Like, what is it about people? Is it some kind of condition? And I think this actually will lead us into the subject of your documentary, of sort of what we get to at the end of that documentary. Do you want to speak more about this? Why do some people go with the narrative and some people don't?
Yeah, and what is that, you know? And I mean, I could actually have several hypotheses about that, but I think that, you know, it is this you know, cult mentality, and, you know, I guess everyone just really gets offended when you hear that word, and as you know, no, I just belong to a whole group of people who believe the same and think the same. It's not a cult. It's just that we all share the same beliefs in love and whatever the song is.
That was my childhood. That was my childhood.
Well, yeah, and you know,
thousands of Americans.
But you really do need to belong to something like that, and then get on the outside of something like that to see how easily you were in that, and why and how, and, you know, because I too was seduced into a certain community, if you will, that had to do with, you know, being whistleblowers and secret space program and all, you know, the space and intergalactic travel, all those things. And we all, you know, we all shared the same belief system, that all existed and that we were open to it. But then there started coming in the rules of what you believed.
Oh boy.
In that. Within that. And then, you know, and then those who were kind of questioning the narrative of those questioning the narrative.
Ooh, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
and so that,
and then some people get so exhausted and scared, like primally scared. I'm not saying that in a derogatory way, but like as animals, we want to feel like we know what's in our environment.
And if you don't know what's in your environment, it might eat you.
It's uncomfortable to feel like you're always open to everything.
Say something again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
good.
no. Okay.
I thought the microphone wasn't working.
Like that.
Yeah, it scared me.
Yeah, because I don't know where Adam went again. So I was just like, wait. He knows he's supposed to stay close, but he's not. But,
it's fine. We're gonna be fine.
We'll be fine.
It's gonna move all these buttons out of the way.
I love this topic. More stuff on it.
Yeah. I just lost my train of thought too. So.
I know. Sorry about that.
We were talking about how animals want to feel safe in their environment, and being open to the unknown perpetually is why some people say, don't be too open-minded or your brain will fall out, because it's scary.
Yeah, it's fear. It's a lot of fear. And, you know, that's also the whole essence of mind control in general, is to instigate this very primal fear of death. Ultimately, the fear of death, even if you will, you know, 6 feet, you know, 6 feet apart. It's either 6 feet apart. Well, what's the alternative?
Death.
6 feet under.
Yes.
You know, so it's like, okay, that's going to, if you don't stand 6 feet from this person, you are going to die. And no, that's not what they say, but it's what's implied.
Yes.
And so, you know, it burns into that layers of where you've kind of, you know, not many people walk around constantly fearing death, except guess what? We do. We just don't know that that's what the ultimate fear is. And there's no sense to fear death, but that's a whole nother topic.
Right. It's going to happen or it's not going to happen, and you don't have any control over it.
Well, what underlies that fear of loss of love or the fear of death, I think, like the reason and also the process of getting out of a cult, I think we have to talk about trauma.
Yeah.
Because
and you do. It's horrible too when you try to get out of this cult, because you know, you're going against the narrative. This is where all your friends are. This is where you've gotten all of your love. And in a lot of cases, you've denounced other areas of love in order to fit into this new belonging, this new belief system that you are really resonating to. So, you know, if I go against this new understanding, this new cult, if I think beyond the limits of what they're telling me to think, now I'm going to be really alone, because these guys have abandoned me and these guys have, and now everybody thinks I'm nuts. Maybe I'm nuts.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
It's like,
Right.
really is just like, okay, never mind. I'm not going to pay attention to that. I'm going to go to happy hour, and then I don't even have to go down that road anymore. And I think that, that's just why some people don't want to look,
That's a whole template.
Yeah.
That's a whole template for what we saw it all play out in really short order with the coronavirus narrative. There were people who started to see stuff, but then to entertain that stuff meant being socially ostracized or banned or canceled or jobless,
Right.
We lost our radio station because, and it was early on. We weren't being malicious. We weren't like, it's the government. We were like, this doesn't make sense. And that was all it took. To make people in the thing where they were adhering to it feel unsafe we were making them feel unsafe.
Yeah.
And we had to take that into account, which is why we focused so much on trauma in season 2, is that we were realizing that we, having had to question and invert our entire realities to become cognitively sovereign in our 20s, like, we are comfortable with questioning what we're told. And we were bringing up questions and poking holes in stories and doing logic charts and things, and it was making people feel really unsafe. And they felt as though we were the thing that was unsafe, even though what we were pointing out is that this data should make you feel unsafe.
Right.
But because we were the messenger, they were like, shut that down. I need to feel safe. And these are the people that are telling me how to feel safe. And so I have to keep trusting them. And you're making me not trust them. So you're the problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
And most of them probably couldn't even articulate it that well, And I don't mean that in like a derogatory or condescending way.
Well, that's the trauma part.
Because
they just go into a reactive mode because unsafe. And that's all it takes to set off a chain reaction is unsafe. And then the chain reaction happens.
Yeah,
and you're in a trauma mode, so you're not breathing, you don't have good oxygen, and you're just going into reactive mode. You're not thinking, you're reacting. And so that's the trauma thing, I think, is really, this is why we spent so much time last season was talking about trauma, because as soon as we have to be able to recognize our traumas when they get triggered, where we're not listening anymore, which is a hard one, or recognizing other people's traumas when you can see them going into a fight-flight mode, or where they're going to get defensive about the thing that you were just friends a minute ago. Like, that's obviously some kind of trauma response, and every word after that means little.
Yeah.
Until you can go back and say, oh, I'm talking to the mall cop of the person's mind, and they're not letting anybody in now. So all my words mean shit.
Yeah. And that trauma, the pattern too for trauma really is that if you're feeling trauma, or if you're going through this trauma and then you let information in when you're in a state of trauma, that's actually the process of that information controlling you. In the sciences and the mind sciences of mind control, that's one of the strategies, is that inflict trauma, and now before you can completely recover, I'm going to give you a mantra. And that mantra is, in other words, okay, so oversimplification, or I don't know what it is, but okay, well, there's a mass shooting at a school. The world is traumatized by that. And the mantra that comes after that is ban the guns, ban the guns, ban the guns, ban the guns.
This is where we're talking. Yeah.
And this is what that's the setup. The setup was, okay, there's this horrific thing that happened, this shooting of maybe children. And so everyone's just like gasping for air that this would actually happen in a world, the United States or anything, or whatever. It's horrible. And now, being traumatized, here comes the antidote. The antidote is ban the guns, ban the guns, ban the guns. Is that, and then everyone jumps on that because they want the trauma to go away. They want some kind of resolution. They want that automatic thing. So like, great. But is that really the answer?
This takes us to that scientific concept that psychologists agree doesn't exist, which is the concept of the mass formation, which is an English version of some European language term for this. But what they're basically talking about is mob psychology. And so the mass formation came about during the coronavirus, came back into the public scene during the coronavirus story to talk about how do intelligent, well-meaning people get wrapped into this experience. Yeah. And it's just like you're saying, there's a traumatic event, and people want to feel like they know what the solution is, who the bad guy is, what can I do to help, and how do I know which team I'm on. And it's just like a war, only it's such an amorphous war with such an amorphous bad guy. And people were given these things. They were given, here is the problem, here is the solution, here's the savior who's going to give you the solution, here's how you can be involved, and here's how you know how to look around you and see who's on your team and who's not.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is what's been going on for decades and decades.
In many other subjects.
But it became much more, like, I feel like much more plastic, like crystallized and obvious.
It's like they crystallized the method and served it up to the American people and actually the entire world. And it's like, okay, well, on the one hand, it's been a perfected method. And on the other hand, guess what? You've used it on us so many times. A whole lot of us can actually see what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so that's the plus of that. But, it's like, you're talking about the mantras too. It's like, here's the trauma, here's your mantra. Wear a mask. It's only a mask. Wear a mask. It's only a mask. If you don't wear a mask, you are a bad person because you don't care about people. If you get the vaccine, because it saves lives, and it will. It lessens the symptoms. This is the mantra, but nobody backs up and goes, well, wait. Vaccine, doesn't that mean provide immunity?
Yeah.
No.
It used to.
Not all vaccines are 100% effective, okay?
And all right, let's just change our definition then of vaccine.
Of everything.
It's really confusing everybody. So let's just change our whole definition. No, vaccine no longer needs to provide immunity according to the CDC. I think they changed that like last week. And but it's like, okay, well, it doesn't provide immunity, but also it's making people sick. And it's and that is documented.
No, climate change is making people sick.
Yeah.
Right, I know, and the free crack pipes are okay.
Referees blowing the whistles on the sports fields is what's
causing heart attacks and actually shaking your duvet cover.
Now that one's satire.
Okay. It's all satire.
Very clear.
It's all satire.
We have to be very clear because all of those other headlines are real things that people are being spoon-fed by the news for why we're having so many heart attacks. And guess what? Now Moderna is creating a revolutionary new way that mRNA treatments could help with cardiac issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Wow.
I do like a whack-a-mole thing where I hide the satire in 3 things that are real and you try to find it.
Yeah, I like that.
Breathing too much in the day causes heart attacks.
That's a real headline.
That was a real headline. Yeah.
Are you kidding?
No. Nope. If you breathe like 5% more than the average person, it increases your odds of a heart attack. Or the other one was like, are the whistles of the referees a possible cause of all the people having heart attacks on the soccer pitch?
Too much childhood freedom. So children who are given too much freedom as children
are prone to have heart attacks.
Are in a destabilized state, and so they're more prone to cardiac issues.
And then there was
isn't that a huge one though? That's huge when you think about it.
So, what they're doing with that narrative, yeah.
So get those kids then, and do not give
them
down.
Lock them down.
Put them on a mask.
For their
they'll
own
have a heart
good.
attack. They might have a heart attack if you give them too much freedom.
Weird. Okay, all that being said, I feel like I have to come in and say, like, we really fucking care about all the people who are dying.
Yes.
And we're suspicious of the narrative of why they're dying.
Yeah. I think we should ask questions.
Yeah.
We should be asking questions.
I've lost people too, and I do understand why I've lost them too, and that's kind of maddening for me as well.
It's probably got to be difficult because you might have a different understanding of why you lost people than some of your friends and loved ones.
I believe that that's probably true. And that's why it's even more maddening for me, because I know it didn't need to happen, but that's just, my belief system and my understanding of the way this is all working. And I've got people in my family who absolutely do not agree with my thought system. They absolutely are not supportive.
Do you have loved ones?
The ones that matter.
Yeah.
Matter.
Those who mind don't matter. Those who matter don't mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have, I think talking about sexual orthodoxies and alien orthodoxies and government orthodoxies are ways that we can kind of discuss how people get brainwashed, how we can change our minds, how weird it is without getting super close to something that's like religion. You know, if you try and go up to somebody and talk to them about how
Catholics suck,
like
or
God
whatever.
is unprovable or
Right.
whatever, then that's going to be really alarming. But we could talk about how we could have a conversation about how maybe like lifelong heterosexual monogamy isn't the only relationship that's valid. You know, and you can have that massaging conversation about belief systems and how to change your mind in a way that's not as defensiveness making. And so I really appreciate you coming on today to talk about a subject that's kind of, it's for the people that haven't experienced something to do with UAPs, then it's not alarming. It doesn't make you feel like you need to defend your cave with a spear if we talk about whether aliens exist or not.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's a good tool for talking about how to change our mind about something that isn't as defensiveness making. And I wish there was a word for defensiveness making.
Yes, there is. Somebody submit.
Yeah, I
it
just
in the comments.
I just never remember it.
Just being defensive, making somebody just to rephrase something that doesn't make people
No,
defensive.
I will find an adjective.
Okay.
I will find an adjective that works.
Well, and also, you know, with this new thing, I mean, as long as we're still talking about aliens, the whole thing around the government and the UAPs, if you will, that's been, the Pentagon had a study for decades that had, you know, Luis Elizondo heading that. And was he CIA? Isn't he CIA? What difference does it make? You know, it's like there's all these reports. There is just 100%. Yes, there are unidentified things out beyond our Earth scope perspective that our military and our government sees and knows about. They don't know what it is. And this is what they're telling us. They have told us this.
Yes.
And I mean, even there's a Lou Elizondo 60 Minutes. So there's mainstream media where he's literally saying we are being watched and we don't know what it is. And the government knows all about it. And so, you know, it's a matter of what you expose yourself to. But, you know, everyone who's saying, well, no, this challenges my belief system, I don't believe it. Well, when you get to that level, okay, this is the government is telling you that this is happening. They've been studying it for a really long time. What more do you need? Like again, Walter Cronkite coming into your living room at 6 o'clock and saying, this is the narrative now. And we all accept it, jump on. And it's, you know, and yet we don't have any answers because we can only give it to you. The truth can only be offered to the American people at the level and the speed that they're willing to accept it.
And able.
Yes.
For sure.
And
fight.
I think the other side of that. This is like, I'm synesthetic, so I keep getting these metaphors that run into my head. And Franklin Roosevelt, who stopped being able to walk and they rolled him around in a wheelchair, they for a long time hid the fact that he was in a wheelchair and only made sure that people saw him from waist up because it would be bad to have a president who was infirm. And I think that's what it's bad to have a government that is infirm. And the infirmity of the government is that it knows everything and says everything as daddy says it, except for that part, which causes the kids maybe not to have the same faith that they had in daddy. And I think part of yes, we'll admit it, but it's over here and you have to come look for it. That's for the people who have already lost their faith in daddy. So they've gone to say, well, what's going on? And how come this isn't making sense? And then you're treated as the bad kid, as an example to the good kids.
Yeah.
To don't question daddy. That's the way I see the whole thing.
Yeah.
The U.S. government is Roosevelt. We're only seeing from the chest up.
The part that's functioning enough.
And the rest of it's completely infirm.
Yeah, to keep people from going crazy.
Yeah.
People have to believe that your vote matters in the presidential election. Otherwise, why are we here?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, don't get me started on voter fraud.
Can we can we talk about your latest project? We would like to, is it okay?
Yes, please.
If we show the...
Yes, please.
We're going to show the trailer, and then we'll come back and talk about this new project. And I think everything that we were talking about before leads in very nicely to this, to the subject of this film.
It's like we knew the segue.
Right. Wow. Amazing. Well, and we're not like going away. We can still be here while it's going.
Yeah, we can talk over your trailer.
We're not going to talk over the trailer. Okay. All right. So let's make this theater mode.
Go big.
Yeah, girl. I'm going to move Adrienne down here. Sweet. Move Adrienne right there. Okay. Let's do this. Oh, wait. Nope. Audio, follow, video. I know this now. I have a third button I have to push in order to make this happen for folks. Here we go.
It was so hard to come running out of a hell that nobody believed existed. My name is Cathy Obrien, and I'm a survivor of MK mind control. The MK program was to ultimately control the minds of the population for implementing what Adolf Hitler first termed the New World Order. When girls reached age 30, they were murdered or they were sacrificed. I was going to be killed as well. I was to go out in a blaze of glory and be burned alive. I'm so fortunate that an intelligence insider who saw the kind of corruption that was going on in the highest levels of government decided to take action and rescued me and saved my life so that we could begin to expose what was being done.
Sweet.
Yay.
Yeah. That's that trailer.
Yes.
Here, let me go back away from that. We'll be back here. That trailer was very beautiful.
It gives me feelings.
Yeah.
I have so many mixed feelings. Part of me is just like wants to like shake my fist, and the other part is like she's being so calm, cool, and collected after what I know she's been through, and the fact that it makes me feel like how many people on the street are saying, "Oh, hello, good day," who have got these similar horrific stories in their background, whether it was through MK Ultra or just like our ability to like just
continue functioning
after some of the most tremendous fuckery that you could imagine.
What does Spock say? I just need everyone to continue performing admirably.
Yes, exactly.
And we just do that.
Yeah.
Well, that's what, that part of what you just said, though, about, you really don't get how rampant this is, the human slavery and being a victim of this. Yes, it all happened earlier, but it continues on. And the interesting part about, that this obviously spans a great deal of information, this particular documentary. It starts with Project Paperclip, when we brought the Nazi scientists into our government and gave them key positions to
something I didn't know about until like a year ago.
Yep.
Yeah. And, and that was in the guise of theoretically we're in a race for space, but it really wasn't. If you really look at it, it was actually a race for mind control because, from where I come from, in the layers of information, we know all about space. we know and
we know enough to keep exploring.
Yeah, we'll keep exploring, and we as the people don't know as much as we as the governing jurisdictions. Right, they already know. So like, cool, we got this down. So now we need to get control of the minds of the American people. And one of the and to speak to my point that I was starting to make, after I started doing the conferences and started this kind of work and created that segue and that safe place for others to kind of like they would come up to me, and I have had so many women, mostly women, come up to me and say, I had no idea people were talking about this, thank you for putting it out there, because when I was my father sold me into this group and blah, blah, blah. And the stories, I'm just shocked at how many people have been touched by this and how many people suspect they've been touched by it because they can't really completely know. They only have flashes of memory, and that's by design.
Right.
The whole,
like Cathy was talking about.
You're not supposed to remember it.
Right.
It's that is by design. It's all the trauma and the torture creates the compartments of the altars that you ultimately you don't remember it. You don't even know you're doing it until that is engaged, and then.
Sci-fi touches on this a lot all the time. They touch on this concept of like the Winter Soldier in Marvel was manipulated in a Nazi-like program to be able to be a perfectly normal person until someone comes up and says a particular string of code words to him, and then he becomes a super soldier and remembers the mission he's supposed to be on and goes and murders a bunch of people, and then they turn him off and send him back into society as a normal person again.
Manchurian Candidate, yeah.
And I was just going to say that, and that's exactly the pattern. And that
I think most people think that it only exists in sci-fi. No, I think most people think it's only in sci-fi.
I know.
But we can't actually do this. Like it's
except we actually can.
We actually can do it and have done it and are doing it to people.
And are doing it.
Yeah.
The cult that I was raised in had mind control techniques that the males were given to program their children. Mm-hmm. So it was very much trauma state. So they scare the shit out of you, and then it's an eye-to-eye lock, and then the world fades out for a minute.
And you only hear what Daddy's saying.
It's just like going down a tunnel.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is that I think people, when you say mind control, people think, the big, huge, mind control. Oh gosh, who would ever do that? And then
like it's a robot. You can just
Like
Professor and then who
X.
am I? Why would they want to mind control me? I'm nobody. And it's like, mind control, that can just be, mind control is as simple as the conditioning that you get when you're born and you hear like the repetitive tape loops of your parents, tie your shoe, or, I mean,
the ice cream truck is mind control. Ding.
Yeah. Well, yes, you hear
gotta go outside. Yep.
The music kept going on, and it's like, okay, the anxiety comes in because you need to go get the money so that you can go run to the ice cream truck. And really, that could have just been the musical trigger, right? Right? That could have just been the sound of the ice cream truck's music in your bathroom, and all these things are going through you, intellectually. Your body is feeling things. Your mouth is watering because you're anticipating those sugary things you're going to go buy. Yep. I mean, really, and that's all been triggered by a sound,
right? And that's something we participate in semi-voluntarily.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, but did we participate in the conditioning voluntarily?
Semi-voluntarily.
It just happened, right?
Because the conditioning is, we've been conditioned in that case to have excitement for a positive outcome. It's still conditioning, but it's a positive outcome that we want,
Right.
And that's why oftentimes if kids are told no about the ice cream truck, the breakdown seems disproportionate because they're not just experiencing, I might get ice cream tonight, like a normal moment. They're experiencing the phenomenon of the ice cream truck conditioning, which, like you said, involves the musical trigger and the anticipation and the remembrance of all previous events attached to that musical trigger. So when they're told no today, for some reason, the breakdown seems disproportionate to the parents because they're having a breakdown of the entire story.
Right.
My religion of ice cream is failing.
What led you, out of all of the rabbit holes you went down, what led you to make this your project?
And you can always say next subject.
Yeah.
Okay. Cathy Obrien Story. I actually remember that story and her testifying when I was younger, and I do remember that. So that was one part. She was also featured in our movie 1,000 Pieces, and I just got really realigned and started talking to her then. But I too have my own experiences around things in my life that programs that slowly been revealed to me around where I may have been tripping around in the universe in my past. But also I put that on the side. But I do see that as a trigger and a motivation. The more I understand, the more I'm seeing. But that's like a more personal perspective. But if you look at this broad stroke of mind control, I see it everywhere. And and like I was saying, mind control is massive, and it's also very, very small. And when there has been this huge sacrifice of our consciousness, and we don't even realize that we've given away our consciousness, that the choices that we're making for ourselves, blue or red, okay, bad, pink or blue, or, meat from the grocery store, or, raised in a different way,
right,
from this private farm, all of these tiny, tiny little choices that we're making, where did they come from? Why do we automatically make the choices that we make? And I think that if you just spent one day chronicling your choices
and the why,
and the where did that come from, and why did I make that choice? Just out of curiosity, you might get to the point where you don't know why you're making a great deal of the choices that you're making, or you're making those choices because, when you were 5, you decided that, meat from the grocery store was fantastic and you really didn't care about the antibiotics. Or whatever.
Yeah, no, I have 2 examples about that. One was I had an Airbnb guest a couple years ago who had let his hair grow super long. He was doing it before it was cool. It was not a pandemic hairstyle. He was just letting his hair go really long. He's like, I know I need to cut it for work and whatever. And I was just chatting with him while I cooked or something. I was like, oh, did somebody nick your ear when you were a kid? And he was like, just had never wondered why he doesn't like haircuts.
Right.
And suddenly he remembered the traumatic moment.
That had happened to him when he was a kid. And so he always puts them off as long as possible because his inner animal only remembers that haircuts are dangerous. And the second example is for me so I'm the oldest of 7 children. We were homeschooled. So I was in the home with my mother and my 6 younger siblings 24/7 until I went away to college at 21 and then got married the next year. So I was full-time mommy's helper and cooking and cleaning and helping with the kids. And we were also, on a budget when you have 7 kids, working to try and shop in bulk, shop as cheaply as possible, So for me, I had little imprints like someday when I move out, I can buy cottage cheese and eat the whole thing myself instead of only a quarter cup, And one of the things that I realized when I moved out into the world on my own was that I ascribed more righteousness to buying raw, fresh vegetables because when you're cooking for 10 people, it does save money to buy a 2-pound bag of carrots and make your little minion daughter peel them and cut them and boil them that way, right? And what I realized was that as myself, coming into my own value as opposed to just my value to the community, whatever the community is, whether that my value to my Christian husband or my value to my siblings or my value to my parents or my value to serve my church, my value exists without relationship to other people. And therefore, it's okay for me to not want to spend a half hour chopping vegetables before I get to eat. And therefore, it is okay for me to buy the little flat package in the produce section of pre-chopped stew vegetables.
Yeah.
They've already been chopped. They've already been washed. And I just dump them in the crock pot. And that was like I still find myself reaching for things in the grocery store that are, by their very nature, that choice is devaluing my time. That my time matters and my experience matters. And it's okay for me to not chop the vegetables myself. It's okay for me to not chop the chicken. I can get the boneless, skinless chicken tenders chopped in cubes and just dump them in the saucepan when I get home. That was
Yeah, that's huge. I get that. It's like, but breaking through that mind, literally a mind control
right
bubble of stew, and that's actually, but that's a thing, and obviously that's a much more simplistic, if you will,
right. Like you were saying, these little decisions throughout the day.
They're little decisions, and I'm only in those types of examples. To me, that's to kind of just get people kind of thinking about the possibility of control and mind control, because let's go to the fact that there was an MK Ultra program with 150 plus sub programs where our government was experimenting on people who did not volunteer to be experimented on. And that's what they were doing. They were literally trying to understand, can we make people do things against their will, even against self-preservation? That was one of their topics. Can we get them to do things against their will, even self-preservation? And they could. They eventually got to the point where they proved that they could make that happen. And then that escalated to understanding that now they started working with harmonics and frequencies and vibrations as the trauma. And then, rather than the horrible sadistic things they were doing to instill trauma into mostly youth, because younger people have the ability to absorb these things way easier than adults. So it was mostly children. The younger they could get them, the better.
Imprint vulnerability,
yeah, very vulnerable, exactly, and less preconditioning. And in Cathy's case, which was in the very early beginning of the projects, she was born into a multi-generational incest-based family. So she was prime candidate. That's who they were looking for. They were looking for kids who were part of an incest kind of situation, because that kind of trauma, especially delivered in infancy, is going to completely make that person suggestible and vulnerable and easy to control. And they've already developed some of the compartmentalizations in their brain in order to survive the trauma of sexual abuse in infancy and then in toddlerhood. So they were actually, those were really good subjects that that's what the what can I call them? The bad dudes were of these programs. That's what they were looking for.
Well, I think when you have,
because I don't want to say government, because it was our government, it wasn't all of our government, and I don't like taking that broad stroke and saying our entire government did this, but it was a corrupt faction of our government, and that's documented everywhere. This is not conspiracy.
Yeah, when you have that, when you have that term intergenerational incest, you have a culture of parents telling kids or uncles telling kids or whatever that what happens in the house stays in the house. This is this world, but you don't say anything at school.
Right.
You don't say anything at church. You don't say anything to your friends. So is that sort of like the compartmentalization that you're talking about? That's what comes to mind when I hear about brains being compartmentalized, because that's a public-private thing where what happens here doesn't come into here.
Yeah.
But what kind of compartmentalization are you talking about?
It's actually more of a biological response to trauma. It's what the brain does with trauma. The brain naturally, as a sane defense against trauma, it naturally compartmentalizes the neural pathways that are being created by the trauma, by the new experience. Those neural pathways in your brain are now creating a compartment, if you will. You've got your regular consciousness, who you are. That's being shut down. That consciousness cannot even tolerate the fact that you are experiencing this horrific trauma. So that shuts down, and the other compartments, if you will, open. And it is within those compartments that these new programs can be installed. So it's like trauma mantra, and that mantra that is then installed into the brain, if you will, during that process is maybe sex programs, maybe, this is when you hear the word, jambalaya, and then it's followed with this key phrase and this number, you are going to take on the persona of a sex kitten. And we have taught that alter everything it needs to know.
And what do you mean by the word alter? Oh, you mean like alter ego? An
alter ego,
okay.
Alter personality, alter personality that comes out. And now that's the personality in charge. But that personality that's in charge isn't taking directives from the self. It's taking directives from the handler and the programmer who originally put those little buttons and things. I'm calling them buttons and things as if there were really buttons, but they're not, triggers.
Right.
The triggers. And so they did a lot of that work for espionage, for, they could give a child a message, or a 10-year-old, 15-year-old, a message to deliver to China. They put them on a plane, go deliver this message. The kid gets there. Hi, purple, green, and pink, gets back on the plane and comes back. It was that simple. And it was, also way, way more advanced, where they would use, like in Cathy's case, where they used her for espionage, and they also used her as a sex slave to, a blackmail a great deal of world leaders. And that was her, but she wasn't conscious and she wasn't aware of it.
Right. So she couldn't tell.
Right. She had so many different conscious. She lost her control over her real consciousness. She says, I remember when I had my last free thought. She was 6 years old. And, from there on, she was no longer in charge. She couldn't even think to eat. Everything she did was controlled by her handlers. So, and she gave up. And, the traumas that she experienced, we actually don't go full on into the details of the traumas that she experienced, but they are in her book, Trance. But it's almost not necessary, because we've moved on so quickly, and in the development of these mind control programs, they learned so much. And what they ultimately learned was that, okay, we don't actually need the blood rituals and this kind of trauma where someone's being raped continuously on an altar, and while they're being, the blood of a goat is being dripped all over you.
Right.
That's a real thing. That is what they did, not because they believed in any satanic ritual, but because they believed and they knew that would work.
That would cause the trauma.
The heck out of you.
Yeah.
So that causes the trauma, and then insert, okay, you're ready to accept anything after you're traumatized to some of those levels. Then you're just, okay, program me. Yes. Okay, fine. I give. All right. Yeah. I will now go do this thing. Because some of these traumas were so horrendous, but what they ultimately came to understand after decades of secret studying and researching and experiments, they ultimately came to understand that they actually could instill that same mechanism through vibration and sound and harmonics, and they could actually control those harmonics silently.
A lot less messy.
A more humane brainwashing.
Yeah, more humane. And a lot of, so when we know that, we're watching, it's like kind of what we're saying, we're watching these TV shows, and wow, that's kind of talking about exactly, like what's happening in space or these things. It's like, even in the TV shows, they're telling you what's happening, and then also they're telling you what they want you to believe. These
about
are
what's happening.
Right.
About what's happening. Exactly. And so that's one way of this, conditioning in that. And then music, they really work with the harmonics. The harmonics come in and create the vibration, and the lyrics that are sent with those harmonics. That's what you need to watch out for. That's what's being fed into our brain. It's like the harmonics create the container, and the lyrics are now creating, the mantra that you will not, the program. Thank you. And And that's, a very simplistic thing. And then you move on from that and you see that, well, indeed, our military, they do have a very great, that we know about, the weapons that we know about, which we also should realize we know about, they're about 50 years to 100 years more advanced than anything we know about.
Right.
That you can put that on the conspiracy shelf if you want, but because I don't have time to provide the proof for all that right now. But I am saying that yes, they are way advanced from what we know about. Mm-hmm. And so you've got just what they want to tell us about the DARPA weapons, the weapons, the crowd control weapons, where really they just release this frequency. You can't hear it. But man, you should see those people run. You can YouTube that, the weaponries. It's like, here comes this intensity, and you can see the subjects. They're just grabbing their heads and they're running away from this, sound vibration that nobody else can hear. And that they say, yeah, we developed that for crowd control. But okay, since we're not so sure our government can be trusted
to be doing it for our good.
Or telling us even the truth, because after all, didn't these programs start taking place? The CIA was started in 1947. The National Security Act was then, the National Security Council was also formed so that they could put the National Security Act on top of anything that the CIA didn't want you to know. That all happened in 1947. And then, Roswell crash happened in 1947. I mean, I want to do a documentary on 1947. Like, seriously, so much stuff happened that year. You should check it out.
Having watched all the things that you shared with us, and then going into the JFK stuff, and then going even further into, the psychedelic drug wars and things like that. And it's like, I'm beginning to feel as though we didn't win World War II.
We didn't. Thank you. We
I'm starting to be like, I feel like maybe they just all got together and decided to tell the West that they won, but actually it was a giant, massive undercover business deal with the powers, the evil power, and they just infiltrated the West, and they're just running things under the guise of these seemingly democratic countries.
Yes,
it kind of all started back then. All of those scientists were allowed to enter the West, the nice half of the planet, or whatever you want to call it.
What are you going to do today, Pinky?
They were recruited. They were recruited,
But we were told we canceled the Nazis back then, and that was the end of it. Go democracy, But it's like if you go back, when was the last time the U.S. government was this beautiful thing that people remember it being founded as? White people mostly. But when was there were some ideals, and there was some community, and there was some democracy, and there was some sense that your representatives were representing you, and that maybe we were out to actually do good shit on the planet. And then it seems as though pretty much somewhere in World War II, we started getting lied to about everything.
Yeah.
New media. Film became a thing.
Yes. Yeah. And that's where, Project Mockingbird, all these projects that came in, the Project Mockingbird was designed to bring misinformation to the masses. And, that's,
and
again,
what was,
not conspiracy, that's real.
Can you give a rundown of what Project Mockingbird was?
Well, that's basically it. Project Mockingbird was an attempt to infiltrate the CIA, to infiltrate our media and television. At the time, it was television and
our
movies.
Trusted news sources.
Yes, our trusted.
Which I think is probably a propaganda campaign term.
Yeah, actually. Oh, you're right. Our trusted news sources.
Yes.
This is what's that other line that they keep saying now? This is a danger to our democracy.
Yes.
Yes. So yeah,
so ironic.
These are the mantras that we heard, and and this whole hanging on, I used to say, I remember Peter Jennings being, when I was growing up, that was at World News Tonight. Peter Jennings, that was God.
Yep.
in our house, and so whatever he said, that was what was going on. Well, who owned ABC? What was controlling ABC? Oh gosh, Disney had a little foot in there, and you can just follow the. I could keep going with
So many rabbit holes, so little time.
Yeah, and how many people own, like, and really, if you trace who owns who in all of the corporations and companies and things like that, you really do only get to a couple that own everything. Even though, okay, I know I'm now on a little tangent, but I mean, look at Blackstone that owns some of Pfizer, that owns some of Spotify, that owns the company that bought, Neil Young's music. It's like, okay, they just got together one Sunday and said, I don't know, let's just create a distraction. I don't know. Hey, what do you think? Joe Rogan. Yeah, let's do that with Joe Rogan. Oh my God, everyone's
we need to shut this shit down. Yeah.
Let's totally do it. And that way they won't even pay attention to the fact that Ghislaine Maxwell's just had her whole thing. And we're not telling you anything about the people that she exposed. We're not going to do that. Don't worry. Go look over there. Joe Rogan, go fight, go fight that, because there's all these other things going on that we really don't want you to see. And we know you're going to jump on this. Ooh, he's dying. Oh, wait a minute. Let's throw in the N word. Oh, that'll get everyone
even
going.
Worse.
I mean, look at that. That's like they're literally making a gypsy stew of
you can't
division.
Yeah. You can't not have an opinion about somebody that uses the N-word. You have to have an opinion.
Okay, I'm sharing a link. This is a thread from Twitter where the guy has done a really nice job of outlining the political attack on Joe Rogan, bringing it back to the videos produced by certain dudes that is paid for by a super PAC. He's done the homework. So it's not just some conspiracy that those guys said, let's do this. It's actually, we have the business licenses of the people who are doing this. So I just put a link in the Facebook comments that shows the, if you want to know how that political attack was formed and who's behind it, you can do that rather than just feeling like you have to have an opinion on Joe Rogan.
Yeah, cool.
Right, folks. So we have 16 minutes left.
Oh my God.
I know, right? I feel like we're just sort of wafting along the surface of all the stuff that we have to talk about with you, Adrienne.
It always feels like that.
How do you stay sane? I'm not trying to put you in a box of sanity at all.
Thank you.
But like, how do you maintain a feeling of integration with yourself and the world around you?
That's a lovely question. I kind of feel like I've amassed a lot of tools throughout my life leading up to this moment when I decided to really need those tools. And I think ultimately for me, remembering always that love is a much stronger force. And I know that sounds really simplistic, but it is one of the places that I go, is that love, that love and humanity in general are amazing and brilliant. And we are brilliant. And a lot of the bad actors, they're really just bad actors because they have been brainwashed and blackmailed, and they wouldn't ordinarily make those choices, but they are making those choices. So I keep that in mind. But then also I live on a massive property with, I have 6 horses and peacocks and dogs and cats and bears and
nature.
Lions and nature. And oh my, I know.
Oh my
and my family is around me. Not my mother and sister. They're on the other side. They don't talk to me anymore. But they talk to me, but they don't talk to me.
Right.
And and so I think that the basic things that humans really need to feel their love and belonging and their sense of belonging, to me, is this alignment with the earth, your place in nature and the natural order of things, and love from family or animals. I mean, when I'm having a bad day, I head to the pine tree grove. I sit down in my little meditation spot, and before I know it, I've got 6 horses standing around me just with their heads going, hey, what's going on? And so honestly, that is my grounder. That's where I ground myself, and that's where I sit and go, so done. I'm not doing this anymore. This is just it's just I can't, it's heavy and it's dark, and gosh, I just lost another friend, and oh look, I got another friend. And it's a very interesting thing, but it's a little bit exhausting. But then I'm also, I'm almost 60 years old. I've raised 3 children. I have a grandson. I've had so many careers. I'm certified to be certified. I mean, I've got so many certificates. I've done so many different things. And so I just really feel like I've had a perspective of different things in my life and different stories. And I've amassed different tools. And now here I am at this place in my life where I actually can take all of this and go and actually say to you, I don't give a fuck what you think. Like, I just really don't. I think if I were 20 years younger, 30 years younger, I don't know that I would have been able. I was saying that. I was definitely saying that because I've always been such a exactly the way I am. But now I've got some confidence that kind of, and I think that comes with age, where your wisdom has finally caught up with your experience, or your experience has finally caught up with your wisdom, I should say it that way. It's like you are a certain way your whole life, and you're making choices. But now all of my experiences have led me to this point where it matches my ability to discern and my own wisdom based on my experiences in my life that I've had up until this point. And so I feel like I'm just in the right place at the right time of my life in order to be able to just really bring this forward. In this information, and take it as you will. I don't really, not attached to you believing it or not believing it, or thinking that, any one person or several people is great or not great. It doesn't matter. But I really feel like if people don't understand what's happening and at least look, then you're going to unfortunately fall into that category of being manipulated and controlled, that's a very sad way to live. I don't know. I really see how extraordinary humans are, and our capacity for brilliance. And for the most part, we are that, but we've been conditioned not to know that about ourselves, not to and the younger you are, the more you've been conditioned and possibly medicated. And, at a very young age, that was all by design. 1980s and takeoff. And it's like, ugh. So I'm serious. From 1980s on, the educational system just got completely hijacked. And that's a whole nother story. It's mentioned a little bit in Trance, in the documentary, but, you can't cover everything. That's why they make docuseries. Yeah. But the point is like I'm in a position where I want to make sure that what I have, things matter, and I'm in a position to bring it out there. And I don't even know why or how I got here. I fell off a horse in 2015, and here I am, talking to you with a microphone in my, room with a red camera across from me, that the editor that lives on my property, who's working on my documentaries, is it's just like, here I am. And a lot of that, I think, is following your own authentic path. And it's like, when I started saying yes to the choices that were in front of me, and I was now aware that I had choices, and that I have choices, so now I can make that choice, yes or no, or pink or blue, or up or down, or left or right, or whatever you want to say. I'm in control now. I'm taking responsibility for my soul and for my actions and directions moving forward. And and Cathy makes that point very much in the documentary, where all this trauma is happening, everything's going on. She is rescued. Nobody thought she was going to be rescued. So then all of her memories get reclaimed. Nobody thought that was going to happen. They thought they were going to kill her when she was 30. So here she's got all of this stuff, and her ultimate message is, once you take responsibility for your own consciousness, you are alive. And it's a huge responsibility to be in charge of your mind, because we were not taught that.
No. Right. This is what we talk. Our term is cognitive sovereignty, not just cognitive liberty, but cognitive sovereignty.
Yeah.
This is my house.
Is the movie out yet?
It premieres the 22nd
of February
of this month.
Wow.
So like 10 more days.
It's fine. It's fine.
I know we really should finish editing it. And you know, it's a little different.
It's always hard to just let it go.
It's really hard. And plus, you know, the previous documentaries, I was either like a thank you at the end of the whole, you know, credits, or a producer. And, you know, my part in it was like, you know, I found the locations and, you know, arranged that all the crew shows up or whatever. But this one, I directed, produced, wrote, researched it definitely. And so, yeah, I am definitely a little bit more like, don't put that in there. No, put that. Yeah. And it's and Homeland. Oh, I don't know if I should say this. But yeah, I am not. I'm not aware.
So you're gonna.
So
have
the movie
a premiere.
is called Trance.
Yes.
The Cathy Obrien story.
Is it going to be available for us to watch on any platforms?
You will be able to watch it on trance.movie.
Okay.
And if you go to trance.movie, that's where it's going to be housed. And that is our other project that we're on. It's a uncensorable, complete bulletproof platform. I know it's a technology. Like, we'll have to have another show about it.
Decentralized Web3 stuff.
Yep. And we've been working on that. We've actually been working on that for a couple of years, but not knowing that the censorship was going to be coming down so hard and this was going to be so needed.
So you were ahead of the curve on that, and now you got to step it up.
Yep, that's exactly right. So,
and can you tell us a little bit about what it is? What's the thing?
Well, sure. I mean, you know, there is, it's called Orin, which is not even spelled like any way that it's pronounced. So that's, you know,
good luck Googling it.
Yeah, it's AUYRN. And
now the bad guys are going to find you.
The bad guy.
Oh, that's true. Can we delete that?
Oh no! Beep.
Yeah, it's okay. It's going to be out there in the vernacular anyway. And so we've got the platform but what we're looking at is that it's a technology, and that technology, whether you want to. We are also as well creating a complementing platform that is an SVOD channel, that is a social media channel, but we're also wanting to make this technology available to anyone who needs it's like a white label, you know, a white label technology that you can then move your platform to, then you can go ahead and say and do anything you want on it, because though it hasn't been tested completely, it is theoretically ironclad. Now, Trance is going to be one of the first real tests of its uncensorability, because Trance has a lot of very, very delicate
name drops.
I really wanted to talk about that, and then I also don't want to talk about it. I think the movie's worth checking out. I'm really excited. We would love to bring you back on the show after
you've had a couple of weeks of
the movie has come out, and
that'd be fun. Maybe Cathy would want to come too.
That would be awesome.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Right? Wouldn't that be great?
Like, even just seeing the trailer, I'm like, what is this woman in like an unmarked bunker somewhere? Like, how is she? Because I have a lot of friends who are like, we need to be on Signal and we should be only texting through double-ended encryption, what, et cetera, you know? And I'm like, well, look, if the U.S. government or the powers that run the U.S. government think that you're a threat, you'll be dead or in prison or Julian Assanged or whatever. And until that point, you're not going to walk out into your car and get blown up on your way to work. And so, like, to me, I guess maybe that's me being a little cynical, but and this is not a slight on Oren at all, because I think the internet is different. Like, the internet is slightly different than friends wanting to like talk to me about psychedelics on a special platform that the government can't read. Like, it's like, look, you're not that hot shit. But someone like Cathy Obrien seems like hot shit.
She's naming some serious names. Those are serious allegations.
That's the sort of person that I would think would be worried about getting in a car without having a dog bomb sniff it first, you know?
Yeah.
But my middling, like, people that yell about politics on Facebook, not so much. Like they don't really need to be worried.
Well, but someone like Cathy Obrien, you know, she did come out way earlier. She's not coming out for the first time. I mean, we have footage from her and Mark Phillips, the man who rescued her. We have footage of them speaking at conferences, you know, from decades, 1970s, 1980s. They put their book out to their book was
Protection,
the testimony, Trance. Their book, Transformation of America, that was their testimony in Congress, but Congress had it sealed, and that actually did save their lives. They basically said, "Nah, your testimony is way too potent. We're going to seal it, and then nobody can hear it." Well, all that did was validate the fact that the testimony was so legit, you know, intense that, well, yeah, they didn't censor her because it wasn't true. They censored her and put that testimony in a locked box,
right?
Because it was true, or they just, you know, national security. They censored it under national security, but by doing that, they kind of gave them legs to stand on, because they couldn't prove. Now they couldn't say that they're liars, or that they're making it up. And now if they ended up dead, that would be really suspicious. So now of course they don't really care so much about suspicion, but you know, it's so obvious when you've been suicided or someone's been suicided. It's kind of like, okay, that they don't even care anymore. You know, it's right in your face. But because Cathy has gone on, and you know, she's 63 for whatever, how old she is, she's lived through this, and she's and Mark has passed, and he caught a bacterial. He caught something in 2020. Somehow his body was invaded by something, and he. So so that did happen, but their work was so already done. Everything had been delivered. The book had been written. Access Denied had been delivered. And Cathy ultimately wrote PTSD, A Time to Heal, which is actually all of the, many of the mind healing, the healing techniques that Mark had given to her in order for her to reclaim her mind. He actually was working with these government agencies to help people who have been under mind control, like POWs and other such people, to reclaim their memories. So when he saw what was going on, before he even met Cathy, he saw what was going on with these experiments and flipped out. He couldn't believe that this is what they were
lying
doing.
Bitches.
Yeah. And that's ultimately how Cathy got rescued. He just went in and rescued her and Cathy's daughter Kelly, and basically gave her all the tools that she might need to start reclaiming her memories. And then even the ones around the espionage and the drug trafficking and human trafficking and all that information that she had and that she was privy to, she handed it to Mark, and Mark handed it to, you know, Customs and all these other organizations. And they were actually able to prosecute based on Cathy's memories that she regained by being in the same room with world leaders.
Spoiler alert.
Certain world leaders. Yeah.
Adrienne, thank you so much for coming on Post-Orthodoxy today.
Thanks for having me. It's been super fun.
Good. You'll do it again.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll do it again.
We should do this again sometime. So Dark and I are doing a special side project after the fact. So we're going to do our outro. We're going to say thank you to everybody, and then keep you on Zoom, but you can pop away. And we
have a secret bonus question to ask
you after the show
is
over.
Air.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So thank you so much, Adrienne.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're awesome. We'll talk to you. We'll talk to you in a couple minutes.
All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
All right. So that was Adrienne Youngblood talking about MK Ultra and aliens.
And so much more.
And I'm excited for all of it. And I'm excited to have her back on after Transformation of America.
Thank you for visiting our Outpost in the Borderlands.
Bye.
Post-Orthodoxy is a
Bye,
project
guys.
of Sevier Studios. We host ongoing, interactive conversations centered around cognitive liberty, and you can join in by catching one of our live streams on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. You can also catch each conversation after the fact as a podcast by searching for Post-Orthodoxy wherever podcasts are found. If you take value from the work we are doing and the community we're building together, you can support the Outpost in the Borderlands for as little as $5 a month on our website, Better Time. That's betterti.me. Visit the Sevier Studios page and subscribe. You can also support the Outpost by following and connecting with us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, and or Substack. Our Post-Orthodoxy theme music was composed by Frank Pascal, and a special thanks goes to our voice actors, Amelia, Colin, Zbo, Rosie, Gabo, Vicky, Mokai, and Tony.
Thanks for playing.
What's outside your reality bubble? I think I dribbled a bit that last one.